So this here is it's a section from the new layout which I mentioned in the What's Happening in 2013 update video in the channel plans video. And this here is a section, I'll just briefly explain what I'm planning. Basically my old layout is fine, but there's too many problems for me. So I want to restart. I'm going to put a layout that works absolutely perfectly fine before I do any scenery. So that's what this is. It's that new layout. Now it's 80 centimeters by 45 centimeters, which is a nice small size for transporting and moving around. I'm going to have basically 6 sections about this size. Well, 5 sections this size and a corner to start with, and then over time I will add the other few sections to create a nice big square or rectangular layout. But I want to get this bit done here first, which is going on quite nicely actually. So as you can see, I've laid the track down, I've got underlay underneath it, as well as that I've done all the wiring for this section as well, excluding point motors. They are coming in the post hopefully today. So I'm going to turn it over and we'll start off with the wiring, and then I'll come back to the points at the top. So there you go. As you can see, apart from this top line, it's all been colour coded, red and black. The red wire is the wire, when I turn the board over, it's the wire furthest away from me, and the black one is the wire closest towards me. Now the reason I've done that, colour coded it, is because it makes it so much easier to work on. If every single line on every single board is the same, then the colours match up and I won't make a short or anything, which is what you don't want. Now as you might have noticed, these here have been soldered rather than well, I don't know how other people decide to connect. I know you can use Loctites or lock clips. Some people just wrap it around and things like that, but I've actually soldered it, as I think that's the best way, makes the best connection. Now all of these joints here need to be covered, insulation tape or heat shrink. I'm not quite sure which one yet, but I'll find one, whichever one I think is best, and just stick it on there. So that there's all to make sure there's no short circuits or anything like that underneath. But the wiring here, it's not, I think the wiring under here is quite good. It's not tight, there's loads of movement in there, which is what you want. You don't want your wires to be tight, just in case I had to maybe wire something up over here, then this wire here would not move over far enough to try and get there. So it's nice and loose, which is what you want. There's loads of movement in there, which is good. But one thing I'll say, none of this goes over the top of the baseboard. So if I put a board on top here, it wouldn't touch any of these here. That's because I've got 1.5 inches of clearance here, so I'm able to protect point motors and things like that if I put it flat on the baseboard, if I put it flat on a table with like no legs, which is sort of a bit better. So as you can see this end here, I've got my wires that lead out of it, which are on this end. These will eventually need to go through a hole. I'm going to drill a hole on either end, exactly the same place on all the boards, stick all the wires through, and then they can connect up to a multi-block. Well, now here is that multi-block I was talking about. It's not much, it's just a normal multi-block. There are 12 sections in there, there's 2 for each one, so I've got straight to 6 lines. Now you can see I've already got the tracks in. That's the line 1, which is the furthest away track, line 2, which is the middle one, and line 3, which is the branch line, or the goods line. Then I'm going to have 2 more in here for point motors, 2 more for lights, and then that will leave me 2 spare ones, just in case I need to have another circuit in there. So that's all good. I'm obviously going to wire them up as I get round to it. But what you can see on the other side, if I get my hand out the light, these here are just wires coming from 2 DC controllers, which is how I'm going to control all of my points, all of the tracks, all the lights can be run by DC controllers. I think it's just so much simpler. As well as that, I'll be able to show people how to make quite a complicated sort of layout with a DC controller. So you don't have to use DCC if you need a bit more complicated layout. So that's what's to come. I'm going to turn the board back over and then I'll carry on talking about that. Right then, you have to apologise for me just for a second, because the bit you just saw, the video, was filmed yesterday, so I'm trying to make sure if I cover the same thing, apologies. But anyway, so this is the obviously track plan, which you can see. The first thing you might notice is the track is not on the straight onto the board. It's actually attached to the to a layer of foam underneath. Now the point of underlay is a couple of reasons. First of all, sound deadening. It helps to reduce the sound of the locos vibrating on the tracks and vibrate on the wood. It can be quite noisy in some layouts. So the underlay helps to reduce the noise. As well as that, it helps to stop vibrations. And finally, which I don't think many people realise, it actually helps for making the track look a bit more realistic. Now that's the reason why I've done the underlay on this piece of track, is for realistic reasons. After a bit of research and so on, I discovered that sound deadening and doesn't really do much when you use foam or cork. It does do a little bit, but not really enough, unless you go for the thick pieces of underlay that you can buy in rolls from like Hornby and Pico. Unless you go for that sort of underlay, this sort of stuff doesn't really do much for sound deadening, because you stick, or at least in my case, you stick a nail or pin through the track, which then basically makes a direct connection between the track and the board, so there's still ways of the vibration getting through. So I'm using foam, 3mm foam underlay. I will probably change on to 3mm cork underlay at a later date. The reason for that is not for sound deadening or any of those reasons. It is quite literally for the sole reason of making it look more realistic. If you go out and look at railway lines, you'll notice that the sleepers and the rails sit like on top of a mound of ballast, and then there's more ballast sort of placed in and around the rails as well. If you notice, there's actually quite a drop on the other side of where the ballast sort of ends, which is what I'm going to try and recreate using this. So I've cut it quite close to the track. When I stick the ballast on, it will drop down the edges. It will create a nice mound, and I think it will look a lot more realistic like that than if I just did it like the old ways, where I stuck it straight to the board and just put a layer on underneath. So that's the reason why I'm using the foam underlay. It's not really for the other reasons, mainly for realistic scenery reasons. Now you can see, obviously I've got 6 points on this board. The next board, which you can just see at the top of the screen on the left hand side, is going to have basically a repeat of the top line 1 and 2, and then it's going to have the other half of line 3, but it's not going to have any of this point work there. It's just going to have like the ends of the sidings and stuff, and that there will give, well, when I attach them together, that will give like a really good long siding. The station will need to be extended, but I haven't got my board yet to do that. But when I do get that board, I'll just extend it, and then it will create a 4-coach station. At the moment it's a 2-coach station. If I find my coach, just give me a second. There it is. Well, now my track's not level. I know it's not level, I haven't levelled it, I've just moved it. And as you can see from there, you can see that, well, the red line you can see about here, that's where the station's going to start or end. So you can see you can only get 1 coach in there. So when I put the other half on, it'll be 2-coach, possibly a 3-coach station, which is a bit small for my liking. So I'd want to add another 50 centimetres to the middle of the station area. It will send it on either side and it will look a lot better. So anyway, that's just some scenery plans and stuff I'm sort of thinking about as I go through it. I'm planning on doing a live feed of me working on the second baseboard, which is just top of the screen there. I'll be working on that hopefully this evening actually. So I'm going to upload this during the day, and possibly the one will go live during this evening and stuff. I don't know how well it's going to go, so it could be quite bad and so on, but we'll just have to see. Right, and just one more thing I want to say before I finish the video. It's about point work and stuff. Now I'm planning on using point motors, and what I want to do is any of the main lines, which is 1, 2 and 3, will have PL11 Pico point motors, and all the other ones are going to have P10E Pico point motors. I want to know something about the PL11. Basically, how do they work well? Are they reliable and so on? PL11, people who don't know, are these surface mounted point motors, sit on the side. They're about that sort of length. They sit on the side of the points, and I want to have 1, 2 and 3 there. Before I go and buy them, I want to make sure that they are reliable and they do work. They aren't sort of going to let me down or anything. And then 1, 2 and 3 points, they're all going to have the usual point motors that you fit underneath the baseboard, but I am going to fit dummy point motors to the top, so they all have something next to it. And then I was planning to add wires and cables running from a signal box to them, and then that will give quite a realistic look in my opinion. Just because there'd be like a box on the outside of a point, and I just think that look really good. So anyway, I'm just asking if people can leave comments saying if the PL11 Pico surface mounted point motor are good and reliable. If people say they're crap, don't even bother with them, then I just won't bother. I'll go underneath the baseboard. I've got loads of room on here, so I'll be able to get that nice done. So anyway, that's just to finish off the video. If people can comment about that, I'd really appreciate it.